way imaginable. She was pregnant with 7 babies, septuplets, and the odds were stacked impossibly against them all. Doctors warned her repeatedly. The risks were catastrophic, the chances of all 7 surviving were nearly zero, and her own life hung in the balance. But Bobbi, with her husband Kenny by her side, made a decision that would define not just their lives, but touch the hearts of millions around the world. She chose hope over fear, faith over statistics, and love over every logical argument that told her to give up. What happened next would become one of the most remarkable stories of human resilience, community support, and the unbreakable bonds of family that the world has ever witnessed. The McCaugheys family was ordinary in every sense of the word before that fateful day in November 1997. Kenny worked as a billing clerk, and Bobbi was a stay-at-home mom to their daughter Michaela, who was just a toddler at the time. They lived modestly, their dreams simple and their faith strong. They had struggled with infertility and had been using fertility treatment when Bobbi became pregnant. But nothing could have prepared them for the ultrasound that revealed not 1, not 2, but 7 tiny heartbeats flickering on the screen like stars in an impossible constellation. The news sent shockwaves through the medical community. Septuplets were extraordinarily rare, and the survival rate was grim. Many doctors encouraged selective reduction, terminating some of the fetuses to give the others a better chance of survival. It was a conversation that happened behind closed doors, in sterile examination rooms that smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Bobbi would sit there, her hand protectively over her growing belly, tears streaming down her face as she listened to percentages and probabilities and all the things that could go wrong. But every time the suggestion came up, she and Kenny would look at each other, and without words, they knew their answer. They couldn't choose. How could they decide which of their children deserved a chance at life and which didn't? To them, each heartbeat was precious, each tiny life was a gift, and they would trust in something bigger than statistics. The pregnancy was grueling beyond measure. Bobbi's body was stretched to its absolute limits, carrying 7 babies who collectively weighed more than any human body was designed to bear. She was confined to bed rest for months, her world shrinking to the 4 walls of her bedroom while her young daughter played nearby, not fully understanding why mommy couldn't pick her up anymore. There were days when the physical pain was so intense that Bobbi wondered if she would make it. Her organs were compressed, her breathing labored, and every movement required monumental effort. But she endured because she was fighting not just for herself, but for the 7 souls depending entirely on her strength. The community of Carlisle, Iowa, a town where everyone knew everyone, rallied around the McCaugheys in ways that still bring tears to those who remember. It started small, a neighbor bringing over a casserole, another offering to watch Michaela for an afternoon. But as word spread about the family expecting septuplets, the support grew into something extraordinary. Local businesses donated cribs, diapers, and formula. The community came together to build an addition onto the McCaugheys home because their modest house couldn't possibly accommodate 7 new babies. Volunteers worked day and night, hammering and painting, their hands building not just rooms but a foundation of hope. It was humanity at its finest, strangers becoming family, giving not because they had to, but because they genuinely cared. On November 19, 1997, at just 30 weeks gestation, Bobbi was rushed into surgery. A team of 40 doctors, nurses, and specialists assembled at Iowa Methodist Medical Center in Des Moines, prepared for the unprecedented delivery. The operation took just 6 minutes from the first incision to the last baby being born, but those 6 minutes felt like an eternity for everyone in that room. One by one, they came into the world: Kenneth Robert, Alexis May, Natalie Sue, Kelsey Ann, Nathan Roy, Brandon James, and Joel Stephen. 4 boys and 3 girls, each weighing between 2 and 3 pounds, their tiny bodies barely larger than a loaf of bread, their cries weak but miraculously present. The world watched and waited. News cameras lined up outside the hospital, reporters from every corner of the globe descended on Iowa, and the story of the septuplets spread like wildfire. But inside the NICU, away from the flashing cameras and the public fascination, a different story was unfolding. It was a story of survival against impossible odds, of 7 fragile infants fighting for every breath, and of 2 parents who barely slept, moving from one incubator to the next, their hearts pulled in 7 different directions. There were terrifying moments when alarms would sound, when oxygen levels would drop, when infections would threaten, and when the unthinkable seemed imminent. But day by day, week by week, all 7 babies grew stronger. They defied every grim prediction, every statistical probability that had been stacked against them. The first few years were a blur of organized chaos. The McCaugheys household operated like a well-oiled machine by necessity. Bobbi and Kenny, along with an army of volunteers and family members, worked in shifts around the clock. There were 42 bottles to prepare daily, 52 diapers to change, 7 individual personalities to nurture. The logistics were staggering: 7 high chairs at mealtimes, 7 car seats for any outing, 7 different sleep schedules to navigate. But amidst the exhaustion and the overwhelming responsibility, there was joy. There was laughter echoing through the house, 7 different giggles that could brighten the darkest day. There were milestones celebrated 7 times over: first steps, first words, first days of school. As the septuplets grew, their individual personalities emerged beautifully. Kenny Jr., the firstborn by seconds, showed natural leadership qualities. Alexis and Nathan, who were both born with cerebral palsy, faced additional challenges but tackled them with determination that inspired everyone around them. Natalie was the peacemaker, always concerned about her siblings' feelings. Kelsey had a creative spirit and a love for performance. Brandon was the athlete, always in motion. Joel was contemplative and thoughtful, often found with his nose in a book. And throughout it all, their older sister Michaela embraced her role with grace beyond her years, helping care for her younger siblings and never once complaining about the attention they required. The McCaugheys family made a conscious decision early on to keep their children grounded despite the media attention. They refused most commercial opportunities, turning down lucrative offers that would have exploited their children's unique situation. Instead, they focused on creating as normal a childhood as possible. The septuplets attended public school, played in neighborhood sports leagues, and were raised with strong values of faith, humility, and gratitude. Bobbi and Kenny made sure each child knew they were loved not as part of a set, but as individuals with their own dreams and worth. The challenges were real and ongoing. Alexis underwent numerous surgeries and countless hours of physical therapy to walk. Nathan's cerebral palsy affected his mobility, requiring a wheelchair and tremendous courage to navigate a world not always designed for his needs. But rather than letting these obstacles define them, the family approached each challenge with the same faith that had carried them through that impossible pregnancy. They leaned on their community, which never wavered in its support, and they leaned on each other, understanding that their bond was their greatest strength. High school brought new complexities as the septuplets navigated teenage years in the public eye. But the foundation their parents had built proved unshakable. The 7 teenagers, along with Michaela, faced the pressures and temptations of adolescence with remarkable maturity. They supported each other through heartbreaks and triumphs, celebrated each other's achievements without jealousy, and maintained the close bond that had been forged in those early days when they fought together for survival. And now, 27 years later, the McCaugheys septuplets have grown into remarkable adults who are writing their own chapters. They've graduated from college, pursued careers in fields ranging from military service to computer science, from education to healthcare. Some have married and started families of their own, making Bobbi and Kenny grandparents and experiencing firsthand the profound love their parents felt for them. They've scattered across the country, building independent lives, but they remain connected by threads stronger than distance. Looking at them today, strong, healthy, thriving adults, it's almost impossible to imagine those 7 tiny babies in incubators, their survival uncertain. But that journey from impossibility to reality is exactly what makes their story so powerful. It's a testament to what happens when people choose hope, when communities come together, when love refuses to surrender to fear. The McCaugheys could have listened to the statistics, they could have made different choices, they could have been overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they faced. Instead, they showed the world what faith looks like in action, what community support can accomplish, and what the human spirit is capable of when it refuses to give up. Their story resonates because it touches something universal in all of us: the desire to believe that love conquers all, that miracles can happen, that the impossible is just a challenge waiting to be overcome. In a world often dominated by cynicism and division, the McCaugheys family reminds us of our capacity for goodness, for sacrifice, for coming together in support of something bigger than ourselves. They showed us that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply keep going when everything tells you to stop, to hold on to hope when logic says it's foolish, to trust in the goodness of others when it would be easier to face your challenges alone.